Now, the war that was fought by the people of Bangladesh in 1971 against Pakistan saw tremendous support of the Indian armed forces that led to the victory for the liberation of Bangladesh. The genocide of lakhs of people that Pakistan looted, mutilated, plundered and massacred is etched in the minds of Bangladeshis and Indians alike. The 7/10 Hamas attack on Israel reminds us of the 1971 barbarity against the Bangladeshis, only much bigger in magnitude, much more heinous in the crimes against humanity. While we pay tribute to the hundreds of Indian soldiers who lost their lives in the war, here's also a grim reminder to the world of the massacre that dwarfs the 9/11 attack, the Ukraine war, the Israeli terrorist attack. And here's a reminder to the world that Pakistan must pay for the barbarity it committed decades ago. I start my conversation with Joyita. Joyita, we'd had these conversations and discussions before as well, but it is always pertinent to mention to the world about the barbarity and the massacres of lakhs of people. Remember, it's not hundreds, it's not thousands, it's lakhs of them that have been killed, raped, looted, mutilated by the Pakistani army. It's unfortunate that the world refuses to raise its voice against this simply because this is one part of India and now Bangladesh, and they would rather have bigger fish to fry, the likes of Ukraine war and now Israel.
Well, in fact, that is the saddest part about, this part of the subcontinent, that the atrocities, carried out by Pakistan have been ignored by the world over the decades. Ever since Pakistan has come into existence, some way or the other it has been perpetrating atrocities on people, be they within their borders or outside. And the thing is, you see, this is something because of certain so-called strategic importance of Pakistan's location and to counter the Soviet influence of the time, that the US has turned a complete blind eye. And if you remember, or rather if history tells us, in 1971 the US had gone to the extent of sending the 7th Fleet to the Bay of Bengal so that India could not help in the liberation of Bangladesh. So, and when you are looking at Pakistan, there is a report that one Pakistani only came out with. It's called the Hamudur Commission report. Now, in that Hamudur Commission report, that Pakistani gentleman had detailed the atrocities that had been carried out by the Pakistani army in Bangladesh, including top generals. The kind of, I would say, it's massacre of people, raping women. So, you see, now then what happened was that Pakistan did not take any action on the Hamudur Commission report. They buried the report, and it has been over 50 years that this Hamudur Commission report had stayed buried. And we in Sunday Guardian, we had carried excerpts of that particular report, and it was bone chilling. It is time India picked up the issue. And in fact, whenever Pakistan is going to the UN in particular and talking nonsense about us in terms of Kashmir, it is time India and definitely Bangladesh also. Bangladesh has to do it for its own sake. But the thing is that will Bangladesh do it? I don't know about that.
Okay. Let's hear it from Mozammel Huq Pradhan. He is the former parliamentarian of in Bangladesh government. He belongs to the Jatiya Samaj Tantrik Dal.
General Secretary.
Mozammel, quickly getting a response from you, the fact that this issue, the genocide of the Bangladeshis in 1971, needs to be talked about, needs to be discussed, the story needs to be told to the world. And your minister from Bangladesh has arrived in India yesterday. He has spoken about the Indian government's, Indian armed forces contribution to the liberation of Bangladesh, and also at the same time spoken about how Pakistan needs to pay for that heinous genocide that it committed against the Bangladeshis, lakhs and lakhs of these people, innocents. Now, what is it that the Bangladesh government can do further? And are the political parties across party lines committed in playing this up further? Because the world needs to know, and I don't think the world is even interested in this.
Thanks for your presentations about 71 Liberation of War. First of all, I like to congratulate you, as because after 52 years you have coinized a subject which is very essential, which is needed to be discussed in the whole world. As because during 71 we were part of the East Pakistan. After overwhelming majority by the public elections votes in 1970, the Pakistani government denied to hand over power, even though they massacred us. They created genocide, in 25th March, and about thousands of people died in Dhaka University, Pilkhana, Rajalbagh police line, MBD, EPR headquarters, and Shakaripoti Hindu areas, and so many killings happened here. Unfortunately, then there is no government. Whenever we flee to India, there was exile government led by Tajuddin Ahmad. It is provisionary government, and Indira Gandhi, the Indian people and the Indian government support us to continue our fight against the Pakistanis. During about 9 years movement, we have about 1 crore people flee to India, and India has given us food, shelters, treatment, everything else. Even though they trained us to fight for our motherland. I also participated in Liberation War and trained in India. So after completion of our training, we entered Bangladesh. Indian military support us. At 11th hour, when the war took place between India and Pakistan, in perhaps 3rd December, India declared war against Pakistan. And there was a war. And 16th December in Dhaka, about 90,000 soldiers of Pakistan surrendered to the Indian army. The Eastern Command, Jagdeep Singh Arora was there. And so many others, Indian officials was there. And they surrendered us. After liberation, when Bangabandhu came to our country, and Tajuddin, and we came from India in Bangladesh, we raised slogans that Pakistani army should be punished through legal, under Geneva Convention. But didn't time, the Pakistani government raised a question that Pakistan army surrendered to the Indian army. And in Shimla pact between Indira and Bhutto, there was a pact, so that it seems to us that the Indian army and the Pakistan army according to Geneva Convention, which the word, though Pakistan has agreement that they will go for punishment. Those who looted, those who murdered, those who butchered the peoples of East Pakistan or Bangladesh, they will go for punishment. But really, you uttered, Hamadur Commission was told, but none of action was taken by them. Even though from our party, Bangladesh Jatiyo Samajwadi Dol, we raised slogan that the looting amount was didn't time, it is about 24,000 crore taka, didn't time, 71. We demand to return it to Bangladesh, but no one paying heed to our words. Even though they have not gone for trial of the criminals, those who looted, those who butchered people here in Bangladesh.
Yes.
Now it is very pleasant for us that India is cooperating us to raise this issue to the international forum, so that Pakistani army or Pakistani Janta or Pakistani government might go for any actions. Number one.
Yeah, but is there any hope that Pakistan is going to do anything, if it's going to apologize to the world and to the people of Bangladesh? And the fact that this has happened decades ago, there has not been a hue and cry that has been created across the globe. You talk about the Geneva Convention, you talk about the Simla Agreement, but at the end of the day, lakhs who died. And Major General Shashi Asthana, when I give a parallel to what is happening in Israel and what happened to the Jews during the Holocaust and even before that, it is important to note that there are Holocaust museums and memorials that have been built across the globe. Why has that not happened to the people of Bangladesh as
I like to.
as a tribute to them, and also for the world to know that this barbarity happened. This is from Major General Shashi Asthana. I'll come back to you, Mr. Mozammel.
I am secondly, I am telling you.
I'll come back to you, Major General Shashi Asthana, if you can hear us.
Firstly, you are absolutely right. The kind of barbaric treatment which Pakistani army gave was of a magnitude that if it was not Indian army, if they had not surrendered to Indian army, and if it was not Indian army who had saved them, I think the Bangladeshi crowd would have lynched them. That is the kind of hatred they had created in the population. One of the reasons why they actually got away with it in some manner was that you have to imagine who were supporting them. America, UK, Saudi Arabia, Iran. These were the four countries who supported Pakistan in doing what they did. And that is the kind of hypocrisy which we found had been happening. Now, just imagine all these, this is now when we draw a parallel. Today, when it is the case of Ukraine, or it is the case of, shall I say, Israel, it's because it's the white man's, perhaps when he is affected, then all these countries and all the human rights organizations, they become active. When it is somebody else, then they don't mind. That's the hypocrisy, and the hypocrisy continues even till date. Even today, can you imagine that after the kind of barbaric treatment which they have done to the minorities in Pakistan, they are sitting in the committee of UNHRC. And same is the case with China. After doing whatever they have done to Uyghurs, they are sitting in the committee of UNHRC. And who has put them there? Obviously, they have been elected. So there are P5 members who have motivated other countries to vote for them, and that is why they are there. Now, this is the kind of hypocrisy which we continue. But notwithstanding that, I must. It's a historic day. In Bangladesh war was a historic war where I think people's movement and the people of Bangladesh, along with Indian Army, I think they did something which is never heard of in this entire world. A war in 16 days, a professional army actually brought down to knees with 93,000 surrenders. In fact, if you take the parallel, after everything what has happened, Israel is yet to start a ground offensive. 16 days have already passed. And Ukraine, we know how much time it has gone into. So this is a war and a kind of, shall I say, an operation which is studied all over the world as to how it was so successful. Yeah. And one of the reasons, as Mr. Mozammel brought out, was that people were behind it. Because in a war of this kind, where atrocities have been caused on the people are the center of gravity. And when the people reject you, then for any army, even Pakistan army, despite all its might, it was difficult for them to sustain themselves. Right. And so that is how I think the whole thing has happened. There is no doubt if Holocaust has a museum and if all these atrocities have happened, we should flag it. And I think there is a right reason to take up this case, even if it is so late. So what? If half of those people who did that may not be there.
That needs to be done, and on an immediate basis. Unfortunately, not being done. Unfortunately, focus keeps going to what the West at this point of time thinks and believes and witnesses as barbarity. Quickly, Joytat, before I go to Patikrit.
When we are talking about the victims of the Bangladesh war, or Pakistani atrocities, let's also not forget the thousands, and why thousands, lakhs and lakhs of refugees who came to India, and they are, some of them, if you go to Bengal around the train tracks, many of them still live in shacks over there. I mean, many of them over the years they have become Indian citizens, and that there is still this problem that is going on in terms of the citizenship. So it is a problem that has lasted over 50 years for India as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is something. I mean, if you have read that Allen Ginsberg poem called "September on Jasor Road," he was an American. He kind of stood up to what the Americans were doing at that time, and he wrote about. He came to Calcutta. Went to the border from Bonga to Calcutta. He saw what was happening. The streams of impoverished people who were coming in from Bangladesh. It is perhaps the most heart-wrenching poem that you will ever read.
Pathakrit, visuals on my screens at this point of time playing. Let's quickly put them out again of these barbarities. This, as Joyita said, these impoverished people from East Bengal migrating into India. Some others who actually fought for the liberation and then decided to then go and live in Bangladesh, the newly liberated country. There are visuals on my screens, gut-wrenching, where people have just been mercilessly killed, massacred, their bodies floating on the rivers and the lakes. It really is, one shudders to see those pictures once again, even as old as they may get, 50 years old. So the world needs to come together, and the question that needs to be asked is, has Pakistan really paid for these atrocities? Is it enough that India defeated Pakistan in the war? Shouldn't there more be done in terms of the human rights violations, in terms of the inhumanity, the barbarity that was shown in 1971 against these people?
Megha, except for our imaginations, there is never an occasion when the world comes together. So that thing will never happen. First and foremost, let me tell you, I congratulate the government of Bangladesh for this momentous decision. The question is this: forget about the rest of the world. How much of that have we documented in India of what happened in 1971, what happened thereafter? That is a very big question. How much of that are taught in Indian education system? That is a question. Secondly, let me tell you, yes, you raised a very pertinent question, that what else did we do after the war was over and Pakistan was defeated? Actually, if you ask me, we won the war and let it be like it. Pakistan continued to do what it wanted to do. When Bangladesh was formed as a new country after 1971, and let me tell you something, as somebody who is a Bengali, and I closely follow Bangladesh media. I am a very strong supporter, a very big fan of Bangladeshi telefilms. But let me tell you, after 1971, Bangladesh needed a lot of hand-holding from India. We did not do that. And we were busy glorifying the 1971 war, which we should do, which we must do. But what else was done after 1971 when Bangladesh was gradually coming up? If you see in many of the areas of Bangladesh, if you keep aside the cities, today Bangladesh is at a cusp. The Bangladesh, the secular people, the progressive people are fighting a strong battle against radical extremism. And it has been going on from 1971 onwards. The Razakars, that ideology still prevails. And there are extremely secular Bangladeshis, Muslims included, who are getting killed. The question is, what have we done since 1971 to handhold in terms of helping the society come up, in terms of helping the industry come up? Yes, in the last one decade perhaps, you see a lot more investments coming up, a lot more collaboration happening in terms of military, a lot more other things happening. As a country, Bangladesh, I have seen, at least in Dhaka, the young people look up to India, whether it is its culture or technology or media, everything. But I think there should have been far more exchange programs which did not happen.
Okay.
I think even today, in many of the places, there is a very strong level of disdain against India that has been slowly sowed by radical extremist organizations, and that prevails. There is a certain level of disdain. The educated, the elite, they know what India has done. They know that culturally Bangladesh and India have the same root. They know how we are intertwined. But that is not the case with a significant portion of the population.
Okay, all right. That's a point of view. Nazmul Huq Pradhan, now in a position that led to the liberation of Bangladesh, we also witness the power that Pakistan had to dare to attack East Bengal. There could not have been a possibility on such magnitude if there wasn't foreign involvement in fighting this war and support that Pakistan got. Do you think that Pakistan at this point of time has been shunned by these international powers who at one point of time supported it?
No, I don't think so. Yes, because those 7 fleet camps to the Bay of Bengal, but it is threat. It is threat. It is not actually they moved to fight for Pakistan. Pakistan was suffering during Liberation War. Pakistan was suffering for much more support from arms, food, etc., etc. Even they are not easily come to East Pakistan. Earlier they sent some forces, ammunition, but later on when the war started, they have to come through Colombo. India sealed their road, so they faced a lot of problems. And for these reasons, in 9 months war, Pakistan really they were not fit for fight with the Indian forces and the freedom fighters. So they have succumbed and surrendered to the Indian forces. Number one. Number two, so many in the earth. There are so many regional war, like Palestine, like Croatia, is happening. Even border coalition, like Pakistan, India, like China, India, this is happening. We Bangladeshi people really think that India is our friend, and we have some sorts of problems with India, so that India should negotiate it. But nowadays, our government, present government, and India government collaborate each other. They solve so many problems, but still remain some problems. Every day or often, time and again, there was a border killing. There was a fencing.
Okay.
In border, BSF shoot our Bangladeshi people. More or less every week it happens. For cow, we are the country whose protein is cow. We are beef eater. So available Indian beef, India can decide that they can export beef or they can export the cows also.
Okay,
This
so
should be
current
eliminated.
state of affairs
Number
sensitive.
two,
There are
number two,
extremists that are working on the
Number
other
two,
side of the border
number
in
two,
Bangladesh. And how do we
No.
we fight this situation?
No,
Is
it
there
is,
an
it is
extremism that is taking place in Bangladesh? There have been
listen,
instances where there have
I'm
been
telling
temples
you,
that have been attacked, Hindus that have been attacked. Desecration
no,
of the Hindu scriptures has also happened. So then, is this the handiwork of the Pakistanis who are hand in glove with these extremists that at this point of time are flourishing in Bangladesh? How is the current government allowing for these individuals and these organizations and bodies to continue perpetuating hate against the Hindu minorities? Again, an important question. I'll come back to you, sir. Major General Shashi Asthana. So while we had a problem back in 1971, we again see a problem that is raising its head in Bangladesh.
In every country, even if the government is right-minded and the government in Bangladesh is looking up to improve relations with India in every possible field, you also have opposition and you also have certain radicalized elements which Pathikrit was mentioning. So they do exist today and they can be exploited by Pakistan, and they are being exploited by Pakistan to hate and to propagate certain actions which finally result into certain things happening either in the borders or also giving shelter to some of the Indian insurgent groups which happened in the past. In fact, earlier there were many groups like Ulfa who used to get shelter in Bangladesh, but of late we are reasonably sure that there is no government protection, but certainly there are certain groups which do follow that ideology, whether it is by lurement or by coercion or by religious affiliation or by radicalism.